everyone to another episode of the CORECAST. I am your host, Mike Carlson, and today I am joined by Mark Fitzgerald. He's the owner of Elite Training Systems, and he is a sports performance coach for professional athletes. Mark, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, Mike, thanks for having me, man. Looking forward to chatting.
Anytime. We're looking forward to it as well. You're a guest that we've really been excited to talk to, and I just want to start right from the beginning. Tell me about yourself growing up. What's your comic book origin story? What's issue number one?
Oh man, I don't know if it's that exciting that it deserves a comic book, but you know what? I was a kid born in Whitby, Ontario, so a suburb of Toronto, and a hockey crazy town. Not really too many other sports initially, but hockey crazy. I think now there's about 150,000 people population wise, and there's probably 15 hockey rinks. Whereas you go to most towns and there might be one or two for that amount of people, but Whitby is a little nutty when it comes to sports. So we grew up watching the Leafs, and every Saturday night, hockey night in Canada type upbringing. And I'm the youngest of three boys, so two older brothers who continually beat the hell out of me and tortured me in ways that are very unspeakable now. And my parents were both very hardworking. My dad was a carpenter, my mom's a nurse, so very kind of traditional upbringing, I guess, and very blue collar, kind of hardworking family and what have you. So that was pretty neat. It kind of set some good groundwork for me as a coach and as an entrepreneur, because my dad had his own business, and so it was kind of cool to see that kind of growing up, and it definitely shaped the way that I looked at my own career path and what options I maybe had, or what I felt I had anyways. So yeah, I think it was pretty typical for a suburb of Canada, long cold winters and lots of hockey, so it was and it was good. I think it, again, like I said, it kind of set the pace for what I'm doing now and what I really enjoy doing, both on the coaching side and the business side. So I think it was, I'm grateful for that experience, and I'm trying to take my kids, I have three kids now, and take them through a similar experience, a little more difficult, because just what I do now involves more traveling around and moving around a little bit, although we're pretty settled where we are now. But it's definitely a different life for them, but trying to instill some of those things that my parents instilled in me.
That's awesome. And what specifically drew you to the training side of things? Like you said, your dad was an entrepreneur. What allowed you to gravitate towards training in sports performance really to start?
You know what? It was definitely one of my brothers, my brother Paul, who's a captain of the fire department in Ajax, Ontario now. He is the guy that introduced me to training, by dropping a barbell on my chest at 12 years old. It was a very forced introduction, but I saw him doing it, and I liked it, and it kind of hey, this helps you be a better athlete, all that kind of stuff. But to be honest, I never really saw it as a career move necessarily, training, because my big brother, who I looked up to, introduced me to it, and it was something that I started playing football soon after that, so there's obviously a connection there. But to be honest, I never really saw it as a career path. My brother's a firefighter, and my oldest brother's a police officer. He's a forensic detective. So I was definitely more looking at those career paths because I saw the success that my brothers were having, and making good money and all that kind of thing. So, and they're obviously both very admirable jobs. True heroes type thing, which they both are. So that was kind of where I was headed. But as I started training more and had the opportunity to go play football at a Canadian university, it just opened my eyes to more training and learning more about it, and being pretty good at it myself, and being good in the gym, just kind of led to some more opportunities. But even when I was done school, I just didn't think you'd get a job being a coach, right? And to be honest, when I was going through that, there wasn't a whole lot of sport performance jobs going around, especially in Canada, so I think it was still kind of on the back burner, but I did it because I loved it. I coached football. I coached high school football. I'm always going to be training. So like, it didn't really feel like work. I had a
Yeah.
regular job that I had to go to, and I was supply teaching at the time, which I enjoyed, but I just, again, I didn't think that I could get a full-time gig in the sport performance world. So it was never really a huge focus, but it was always a passion, right? So I think that kind of led to making it a full-time gig, right? Finding a way to do what I love. And I think a
Yeah.
lot of people don't really get the opportunity to do that, in their careers. So, and for me, it was something that I kept going back to. I can always make money coaching. I know I'm a good coach, and I can connect well with the athletes, all that kind of stuff. And it always ended up being the go back to, and I think
Yeah.
that's at one point I said, hey, well, why don't I just try to do this, instead of just bouncing around from other, real jobs to, why don't I just try and figure out how to do this? And I got an amazing opportunity from a guy named Adam Foote, who's, I don't know if you'll know that name or not, but played 19, 20 years in the NHL, won a bunch of Stanley Cups, won some gold medals. He gave me a chance that I probably wouldn't get again. As a very inexperienced coach and kind of green, I trained him for the '06 Olympics, leading up to the '06 Olympics in Turin, Italy. And it was huge. And he hired me then to run his sport performance center in Whitby, which I, 8 to 10 years later bought off him. So he gave me an opportunity to kind of get my hands dirty and experience that, work with a guy like him and others that just opened the floodgates into that world. So it was pretty amazing. Very fortunate with a guy like him who, gave me that opportunity, even though I may not have been ready for it at the time. It was, it was an opportunity that are hard to come by, and I get a lot of emails now about coaches saying, how do I do X, Y, and Z? I'm like, man, I think I got really lucky, and with not only him, but other people that opened doors for me and gave me opportunities. And, at the same time, I worked hard and I love what I do. So it made it a little bit easier, but people that have paved the way for sure.
Totally. That's a really great story to hear. And from there, you obviously, worked with a lot of other NHL teams and worked with kind of a whole swath of professional athletes. Can you tell me a little bit about that? What kind of that was like being on the team side of things?
Yeah. And you know what? I started working with the Oshawa Generals, which is a junior team in right beside Whitby. And, that was my first kind of experience on the team side. At the same time, I started working with Ontario Tech University, as they just opened kind of a younger university. I think they're only maybe 20, 25 years old. And they started a hockey program, and I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to work with them and the Generals at the same time. And that led to, someone recommended me for the Toronto Maple Leafs and as an assistant there. So I ended up spending 7 years with the Leafs. And that was a really incredible experience for a number of reasons. I got to work with some amazing people, both, therapists, other strength coaches, management, hockey coaches, what have you, that really changed my trajectory, I think, or changed my career path a little bit, because, working for the Leafs is pretty amazing. And, one of those companies that just do you so well, and you're afforded so much opportunity. And, it was different too. I was commuting from Whitby, which getting up at 4 a.m. and on the highway by 4:30. And, kind of at that same time, I dove into opening my own business as well. And then we had a kid a couple of years after that. So it was a little bit crazy, but nobody's story, I think, is a nice clean line. There's ups and downs, and there's a little bit of craziness and what have you. But working on the team side just taught me a lot about building buy-in with athletes, building trust. You see them more than you see your own family, and if you don't have that foundational trust, like, you're not going to get out of them what you maybe should as a coach. And I think that more than anything, that taught me that within that team atmosphere, that you really have to understand your athletes. It can't just be about X's and O's. And it's really helped me to kind of, understand that and, be able to work with different athletes, injured athletes from different sports. And, working for the Leafs it has a lot of other good things that go along with it too. That logo is pretty powerful. So it, afforded me some good opportunities to do some more consulting, take on some more NHL guys in the off season, all those things. And, to be honest, it led to my next role. I actually resigned from the Leafs just because we had our twins after that. So life was just a little crazy, and I was really not enjoying the drive into the city anymore, which was, traffic and all that stuff. And I was missing a lot at home. So I just resigned and took on some other consulting roles, had my business going, what have you. And then I got a call from the Anaheim Ducks and, hey, you interested in this job? I don't know, do we want to move to California? So it was, again, a little bit of a whirlwind. And, we had a young family at the time, no kids in school. So we said, yeah, let's do it, and I wouldn't have had that opportunity without the experience I had with Toronto, because the hockey world is very small. I've been fortunate to be on the good side of that for the most part. And, I had coaches in Toronto that were now in Anaheim, and management and people that knew me and, whatever. So, and then really that's how it works, right? You build relationships with people, you build relationships with athletes. And, again, that experience pushed me into this other experience that I got, so it was pretty cool to work on that team side. I think it gives you a good perspective on athletes in general. People that have never experienced the team side, I think, are missing out on a big piece of it, like a critical piece of information around how athletes work, in my opinion. If that makes sense. Because if you don't see them in their team environment, I think it becomes difficult to really understand the how and the why, and I think that's more than anything, that's what's given me, like incredible amount of experience around that.
Nice. Well, you brought up a really interesting point in that you talked about, creating buy-in with athletes. And it seems to be something that, whether you're a hockey team or a baseball team or a football team, if your athletes, if your players aren't buying in, then, kind of it's a moot point. The rest of it doesn't matter. So what have been ways that you found, are really great to get athletes to buy in? What have you learned? Because it is something that, it's a relevant question, not only for teams now, but I think for teams, for all time.
Yeah. Well, you know what, I'll have to say first that a good friend of mine and a colleague, Brett Bartholomew, someone that you should probably look to get on the show at some point. He put out his book, Conscious Coaching, and now he has a whole ton of educational resources around that topic, building buy-in, building, trust in your athletes, all those sorts of things. So he's done an incredible job at, formalizing all that and putting it together. So give him the credit that is due to him. But for me, it started before that, because it's just trust. And I don't mean to say trust in a, offhanded way, but it is, and you could be the smartest X's and O's strength coach in the world. You could know, squat programs and all these specific, niche exercises, whatever. But if the athletes don't trust you, it doesn't matter, So do I think I'm the best X's and O's strength coach? No, definitely not. There's some brilliant people in our field that are just, paving new technology and movement path. It's incredible. I'm not one of those guys, but I know what I can do in a room with athletes. I know how to build a relationship, and it's not always perfect by any means, but there is a formula to it. I don't know if I could really illustrate what that formula looks like, but I think a lot of it is just the nuance of, learning about somebody and actually taking an interest in people. And I think that's where, probably what I didn't say before with coaching is that I just enjoyed helping people, and yes, I'm not a firefighter or a police officer or, someone that helps people in those dire situations. But, I say to my staff at ETS, a lot of the time when people come to the gym, that's the best part of their day, whether it's at the end of a long day or at the beginning of a long day, you get to be a part of what makes them happy or what gives them some satisfaction or what helps them tick a box towards a goal like that. That's special, and again, it may not be the life-saving stuff that these real heroes are doing. However, it's still contributing in a positive way, and you're helping people self-esteem, image, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's important, and I think that's what has attracted me to this profession is you really do get to help people, and I think when you see someone get it and you have that light bulb moment, like I get tingling in the back of my head I don't know what that means, but, that's that's a positive sensation that I know the athlete's feeling that in their own way, you know. And I think that's when you have the mindset like that, you know, you're going to be successful in coaching. And when you have the mindset of, hey, this is my program, this is what you need to do, and you ignore the personal side of it, or you ignore the emotional or, you know, relationship side of it, you're missing it, you know. And the best coaches that I know and that either mentor me or that I look up to or call friends or whatever, they all have their own version of that, of building trust, of actually caring about the individual before the training. Because if you have the foundational trust and the relationship built, man, you can do some amazing things in training, right? Because these guys and girls are wired to be the best at what they do. So that's where it becomes fun, you know, and you get that, the feedback. I don't think I'd be half the coach that I am without listening to athletes on what they feel, how they feel, where they're at, how they, you know, how having them explain why they did a movement really well or they didn't do a movement really well, one or the other, right? So if you're not a good listener, if you're not paying attention to those things, then in my opinion, you're really missing out on the real art and craft of coaching, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's incredibly insightful, and I think you bring up a great point. It's, you know, you need to have a personal relationship. You need to wear a lot of hats, you know, as a trainer. You need to be someone who, you know, is not only going to, you know, correct your form if you're doing something wrong, but someone who can be there, you know, if you have a tough day or if something just isn't going well outside of, you know, being an athlete. And to be able to wear all those different hats is what separates people. It's what separates, you know, really good trainers.
You know what? And the other thing too is that I get a lot of people reaching out to me with, you know, looking for advice and stuff like that, which is great because I did the same thing when I was a young coach. And, you know, we've had, I don't know how many marriages in our gym, you know, people that have athletes that have met there and married and have children. And I've had so many weddings that I've gone to of athletes, babies. Like, that's why I opened the gym, to create that type of external family that now, you know, I get to have even more of, you know. And like, they don't care about that great workout that we had 3 years ago, but they care that you were at their wedding. You know, they care that, you know, I'm on a lot of lists of athletes that they call when something either goes really wrong or really right, you know, and that's special. Like that's why I love what I do. You get to be one of those people for someone else, right? And I got a lot of those people in my life, which I'm extremely grateful for. Some are family, but some are, you know, people that I've met through training in a roundabout way, you know. And I think it's so special that you see more coaches focusing on things unlike that. And it's too bad because you're missing out on the really, really special stuff.
Totally. And I do want to talk about your gym because I think it's, you know, first of all, a lot of really cool things going on there. You know, you alluded to it earlier, you know, how it kind of got started, but, you know, being able to start it, was that for you, you know, realizing a lifelong dream? Have you always wanted to open your own shop, or was it something that just kind of happened?
Well, you know what? I don't know if I always wanted to do it. I think once I started working in that field, like any young trainer, you think you can do it better. And, you know, I'm sure part of it was more ego and thinking that I know it all, which obviously I don't. But, you know, I think what drove me to do that is, you know, being in the team side with Toronto was, hey, like, this is a gym. This is basically a gym. Yes, all these guys are on the same team and we're playing hockey, whatever, but the way that we were training, the way that they came into the gym, like just all those things, it's like, you know, this is the template for a business, you know. And you know, even how we train, you know, 4 to 6 guys in the floor at one time with one coach, you know, like even like as specific as that. And like having food there is not so much what we do anymore, but, you know, having kind of a full service shop where people come in and, you know, maybe we're former athletes or young athletes, what have you, where that they could have that same feeling of being in the dressing room. And I think once I really, you know, dove into that side of it, it started to become a little bit more clear because it, you know, the gym business is a tough business. It's kind of like opening a restaurant, you know, unless you're, you know, keeping up with current trends, unless you're, you know, changing your menu and, you know, evolving in the right way. It's a tough business, you know. And there's, especially who your competition is too, right? There's so many big gyms that have fancy change rooms and, all these other things, but ours doesn't have that. Ours is very, hey, we don't have any cardio equipment because we sprint and we move, and we don't need those types of things. We just need space, right? So you're selling something that can typically be very foreign to the average gym goer. So I think, not that we're looking for the average gym goer necessarily, but you still need some normal people to pay your bills, right? So unfortunately, it's hard to build a business, a sport performance business, just around athletes. You have to have people who are looking to get out of those typical workout routines as well. So I think I saw a space in the market for that type of environment, and other people. I mean, I'm not the creator of it by any means. One of my mentors, Mike Boyle, had already been doing it for a number of years. So leaning on him a little bit, and how did you do it? How do you structure the programs? All that kind of stuff. I was very fortunate to get with a guy like him and pick his brain and visit his facility a bunch of times. And so all those things kind of led to, this is doable. I can make money. This is a business. And I think that's kind of what made it a little less scary to get into my own space and to put some money up and whatever. So it was definitely, I saw the need, and I saw a concept that really hadn't fully been done in my area. So I thought, let's do it. There's a little bit of risk there too, obviously. So you only live once.
Hey, exactly. And I want to kind of get into your training philosophy too, and the stuff you do inside there, because I was doing a little bit of research on you and on kind of all the cool stuff you're doing, and I stumbled upon an article that said you had your athletes sometimes playing handball or dodgeball, or just doing different sports, and that was something that you've encouraged. Tell me a little bit more about that. I mean, obviously, dodgeball, everyone loves to play it, so I mean, there's automatically that element of it. So not going to say no to that, but what started that, and what started that realization for you?
Well, I think, and I'll reference it to just somebody I work with today. I'm working with a young athlete who had a knee injury, and a pretty substantial one. And, a lot of people around him have got to get back on the ice. You're a goalie. And I say to him every day, you're an athlete first, you're a goalie second. So building athletic capacity first will help you be a better goalie. Whereas a lot of the focus in today's athlete is play more of the sport, year round this, year round that, without enough training in building your athletic toolbox. So to me, that's always been, and I haven't always done it right. Let's start there. I've made a ton of mistakes, and I prioritize the gym over everything else. And that's not, and by the gym, I mean like weightlifting. And now, my programs have evolved to probably less weightlifting, more focus on movement and movement capacity, So I just saw a need. I saw a need for my athletes to be more athletic. If you're an NHL player and you can't throw a football, or you can't toss a frisbee, there's a problem. And I don't mean to pick on just NHL guys, but the best athletes that I work with are athletes. Brian from the Ducks could throw a football 50 yards on a rope, and it's like, wow. You could hit a baseball out of the park. He can play volleyball, like incredible athleticism. Well, it's obviously transferred to hockey because he's one of the best ever, right? So, you get cases like that, and you say, and I would always ask him questions around like, what'd you do when you were a kid? Well, when hockey season was over, I put my hockey stuff away and I played baseball. I played football. His brother plays professional football, so success leaves clues. And I started to realize that, if I get my athletes to a level of strength, how strong is strong enough? We figured it, we had a good idea of where that is for our different athletes. And then we said, okay, what is their missing link in terms of what they need to do better, either on the ice, on the court, what have you. And the majority of the time, it was based around movement. It was based around moving better. They were strong. Some cases, maybe they were a little bit too strong, or that the strength was too much of a focus, and it then inhibited their ability to move and move well and have capacity around that movement. So I think it just came out of being in the gym and watching what our athletes were doing. And, I wish I would have, figured it out a little bit sooner, to be honest, because it's made such a difference in, how we look at training programs, how we look at assessment, all of those things, because at the end of the day, we're helping athletes be better athletes. Weight training, all this stuff is just tools in their toolbox. It's not, one doesn't prioritize over the other. Yes, they have, hey, it's time to get a little stronger now. We're going to spend more time here. And again, going back to Mike Boyle, you're filling buckets. Well, if our strength bucket is overflowing, but our mobility and conditioning buckets are empty, well, we're not really helping this athlete, right? And to be able to sit back and have that 30,000 foot view on what those athletes need and what they need to be doing is huge. And I think, you're getting some really, really intelligent coaches now who are, kind of pushing that idea even further and, building out, certifications and movement capacity things that are just incredible. And I think that's where our field is headed now with, is making sure that our athletes are in fact athletes and can move in different planes and can do different things that is going to feed their given sport. And I think that's a big realization for me. And I can see it. I can see it in the way that our athletes respond to it. From college players to high school to professional, the better athletes are, the better they understand their bodies and how they move, man, it's just the carryover to their sport is incredible. And just how they feel and how again, they start to understand what they need to do without me, because my job should just be to, point them in the right direction, cue them, whatever, but their athleticism should take over, at some point.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's why they're at the professional level. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's cool to see that kind of come to fruition and see it grow in front of you almost, and it's been interesting for sure.
Totally. And I think it's kind of the, specialization versus, playing a wide range of sports is something that's, especially prevalent, and it's been kind of a hotly debated thing. But you bring up a great point. You're not just going to be a baseball player for the rest of your life. You're not just going to be a hockey player. You need to be an athlete for the rest of your life. And that's really period, end of story. And you look at a lot of great athletes, and it's your point, success leaves some secrets. Your Kyler Murrays of the world in the NFL, your Russell Wilsons, a lot of those guys, grew up playing multiple different sports and were able to play it at a high level and had a lot of carryover. So I think it's an incredibly relevant discussion to have, but I also think it is going to help a lot of people as well.
Well, it's funny because that dodgeball story comes from a coaching clinic that I did with Steve Spott, who is assistant coach for Vegas right now. And at the time, he was my head coach with the Marlies. So there you go, small hockey world. And we did a thing with Whippy Minor Hockey where he spoke about, the hockey stuff and I did my thing. And we had, coaches, we had about 300 coaches there. And the coaches came up afterwards and we were chatting and, you have someone come up and the coach is like, oh, we want to go to your gym. It's like, perfect. This is why we do these things, to generate business and whatever. I said, okay, how old are your players? He said, oh, they're 8 years old. And I said, as much as I want the business, I said, it'll be a waste of your time, because those kids are too young to really benefit from being in my facility. He's like, and he kind of looked at me sideways, right? You're turning down business. Yeah. And I said, well, what you can do is number one, you can save some money by going to a school gym and renting out a gym maybe twice a week and play dodgeball, play basketball, play floor hockey, even if you want to play anything else but ice hockey. And you're going to see a very big return for your athletes. Team bonding, social aspect of it. Let's say they play basketball, hand-eye coordination, lateral agility, plyometrics, conditioning. Like, you're telling me that those things aren't going to be beneficial for a young hockey player? Way more beneficial than, a lot of things that I could do in a gym, because number one, if they're in a gym setting, keeping an 8-year-old's attention is going to be pretty difficult. Number one. Number two, you're going to get typically on a team of, say, 15 kids, you're going to get 2 of them at the top, 1 to 3 kids at the top who are really good athletes who get why they're in the gym and they love it. You're going to get 1 to 3 kids at the bottom of that spectrum who don't want to be in the gym, more of an attitude thing. Maybe they're not the best athletes. And then the group in the middle can get swayed either way. So if you have really strong young, I mean, these are 8-year-old kids we're talking about. So that group is probably going to be swayed towards the bottom end, right? So all of a sudden, what kind of quality work are you doing? Whereas if you have an open gym and you just let them play, they're going to figure it out on their own. They're going to they're going to check all those boxes that we just talked about without any coaching. You can put parameters around, hey, you got to pass the ball 3 times, whatever. But the carryover is going to be so much higher, and they're going to have fun. And like, it's going to feed into, hey, this is what being an athlete is like. This is what playing hockey is like. It's fun. It's not just hockey. But again, I've been lecturing about that for, 10 years. And, even a couple of years ago, I did a talk for the Coaches site, which is a online coaching platform. They do some live events too. And I, again, about 300 or 400 hockey coaches, and I'm talking just kind of about this type of thing. And half the room is, arms folded, not looking at me too kindly, not listening to me, which is fine, each their own. And then the other half is nodding their heads, going, yeah, that makes sense, right? So you have and typically the guys who are nodding their heads are a little bit younger. They maybe played, maybe they had a strength coach, so they're understanding that. And that's where that tide is turning a little bit, where, these hockey coaches are starting to understand slowly that, hey, if I have good athletes and I can coach them well in the sport, I'm probably going to have more carryover, more success, whatever that looks like, with the guys, right? So, or girls. So, they're starting to kind of slowly accept that, because that is, in my opinion, a fact of, if you have better athletes and then you can coach them, they're going to be more coachable. They're going to move better. And then it's up to you as a hockey coach to make sure they understand the ins and outs of the game and the technical, tactical aspects of it. So you're setting yourself up for success if you have more well-rounded athletes, right? So again, I think it's still going to be a bit of a hill to climb for most sport coaches, but it's getting there slowly.
Awesome. And I got one more question, then we'll head to the rapid fire, which I'm really excited for now that we're talking about a lot of different sports. So it'll be a lot of fun. Where do you see, and you talked about it a little bit, about movement and just lifelong athleticism, where do you see, sports training and sport performance heading? Do you really see it heading towards lifelong athleticism and stuff like that? Or is there anything else, that you see, the industry, the practice heading for?
I think in terms of the coaching industry, I think you're going to have to spend more time getting to know your athletes. I think athletes' expectations of coaches are much higher, which in my opinion is a good thing. It means that we got to be better. We got to understand, athletes' backgrounds, injury history, sociological, emotional, all those things. We got to make sure we understand all those things in order to get the most out of the athlete. Because, talking about the other day with my business partner here is, I don't yell at anybody. I had coaches that would scream in my face, and, that motivated me to some degree, but I haven't yelled at anybody in years, and I don't want to, because it has a negative connotation to it, and that's just not our field anymore. And I mean, it's still being done for sure, but anybody that I work with, they're not going to respond to that. So we have to, as coaches, we have to make sure that we're, our message is getting across and it's getting accepted, or it's getting absorbed, whatever way that we want it to be. From a training perspective, I think you're going to see, depending on how the sports go in terms of, are they more accepting of building athleticism, or are they going to stay stubborn and keep saying, no, play our sport 12 months a year? We have to, it's a longer road, but we have to continue to educate. We have to educate our sport coaches, our parents, our athletes around what is best. And I think that's going to be a difficult job for sure. But when you can make examples of situations where, guys like Kyler Murray, guys like, who's quarterback from Kansas City, Mahomes,
yeah.
Guys are incredible athletes. Yes, they're incredible football players too, but you could take those guys and they could play other sports easily at the professional level, and I think those are the guys that we have to use as examples, as opposed to the kid that played nothing but either hockey or football all the way up, and suffered injuries and this and that. And I think we got to focus on those well-rounded athletes. We have to push. I mean, even with my kids, like they do a multitude of different sports, judo, parkour, soccer, hockey, flag football, like exposure, and not just, hey, if my kid plays hockey at a high level, great. I don't care. As long as he loves sports, as long as he loves health and wellness, to me, that's my job done. Well, part of my job done, and I think that's where our industry should be heading. I don't know if it is heading there, but that's where I hope it's heading. Because again, I think it makes our jobs easier too. Then it's where you're not seeing these catastrophic injuries because this hockey player hasn't been out of skates in 18 months, right? So whereas, hey, this kid plays soccer in the off season, his ankles are great, his lateral agility is great. Well, you're bulletproofing yourself for other sports. Yeah. You're playing one sport to benefit the other, and I think that mentality, I hope, grows, because that's the fact. That does work. That sport exposure does work to build other habits. So I'm hoping that's where it goes, but it's a tough industry to predict, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm. So now we're going to go right into the rapid fire. So we're going to keep it fun. I want to start off with I think an easy one. What is your favorite post-workout snack?
Oh man, I've had a lot of different types of post-workout snacks. Some probably not so good. Some others, you know what? I'm a big fan of getting a shake in right away. There's a couple brands that I like to use. BioSteel Sports has been around forever, a quality product, and also a company called UCAN. It's a super starch, a pretty interesting product. So for guys like me, a little bit bigger, I'm 225 pounds, so I have to be careful with my carbs, or I have to earn my carbs. Sorry. It's a pretty amazing product that isn't as well known as most, but it's a super starch that levelizes blood sugar and allows me to kind of keep some nice consistent energy without putting myself into in a bad way with too much sugar or what have you. So those are probably my two favorites for sure.
Okay, I like that. You're the second one to say shake, who we've all talked to. So I like that answer. This one I'm interested to hear. What's your favorite exercise / movement? Is there one that you absolutely love?
I mean, for me, it's bench press, because I've always been good at it, and it's just a pure meathead exercise with a lot of good benefit to it. For my athletes, I would say it's a single leg squat or a single leg jump of some kind. It tells me so much information about what I'm working with and what maybe needs to be addressed, I guess. Whether it's weakness, whether it's dominance, whether it's how they position their bodies or what have you. I think it's a good indicator. It's not the only thing, obviously, but if I have to pick one, I'd pick that for sure.
Okay, I like that one. I like that. Now this is an interesting one, because we've talked about dodgeball. It's you, and you can pick 4 other people to be on your dodgeball team. Who are you picking? Who are your guys?
Well, I got to think I need a shooter, so I'm going to pick a baseball player of some kind. What's his name? Trout. The guy looks like a linebacker.
Gotcha. I like it. That's a strong first pick.
Yeah, my buddy's a strength coach for the Angels, so another Canadian guy, actually. So I'll pick him. Jeez. I got to say some hockey guys, too, just because I'll get in trouble if I don't. I'll pick Brandon Montour. He's from the Buffalo Sabres, a client of mine.
Cool.
And then, you know what? I'd probably pick another client of mine, Kendall Coyne Schofield. She's about the fastest person on skates, so I need another speedball running around there. Then I'd probably pick my son, Kane, because he's pretty damn good at everything. So, and he's the most competitive person I've ever met. So I'll go with him too.
That's good. A rock solid team. That's a rock solid team. Okay.
Yeah.
I really like that. So I got 2 more. If you weren't a trainer, you would be a what?
Oh man, I think I'd probably be police or fire. I think it's nice. Kind of in the lineage or my blood or whatever. But to be honest, the entrepreneurial side, I'd probably be involved in some sort of business as well. Just because I really, really enjoy that side of it. Stressful, but benefit or but work well.
Okay, I like that. And then the last one, this is someone we ask all of our guests. What gives you strength? It can be anything. It can be abstract, people. What's the one thing that gives you strength?
Well, if you can't see it in my office here, but I have a wall of stuff from my kids, and that's definitely where I draw that from. And I know that's a common answer probably, or a cliche answer, but it's true.
No, it's a great answer.
Yeah, they kind of motivate me to, keep pushing and build a life for them that my parents built for me, and one that we can experience some cool stuff, and one that they can enjoy and kind of build good memories and build family traditions, all that kind of stuff. That's really what gives me strength for sure. And just to come home and be greeted the way that I'm greeted is always the best part of my day. So I look forward to coming home. I do anything I can to come home and have that greeting, because that's the best part of my day.
Awesome. Well, those are all fabulous rapid fire answers. You aced the rapid fire, so love that. Love when that happens. Where can we find you on social media? Anything that you want to kind of, get out there for people who are listening to this podcast, either follow, take a look at, anything like that?
Nothing off the hop, but we got some things that are coming in the works, so I can't really speak to them now, but I'm sure I'll get back on at some point and maybe be able to advertise those. But at Fitzgerald ETS is my social media stuff. I don't post a ton, but I've been working with Under Armour for 12, 13 years. So they're getting me to post a little bit more and, showcase some training and showcase some athletes. So I'll be doing a little bit more of that as much as I can. It's not the first thing that comes to my mind, unfortunately. So I'm not as good as others at it, but I'm trying.
No worries.
Yeah.
No worries at all. That's perfect. Well, more than anything, we can't say thank you enough for coming on the show. This was an absolute, just awesome time. So we're looking forward to, hoping taking you up on that offer and having you on again sometime to talk about it. I feel like we could talk about a whole lot of other different things. So we can't say thanks enough, and we're glad we could have you on the show.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it, man.